colonial period, right? A time during which, first of all, I should remind you, there was no such thing as white people. I know that's hard for us to hear sometimes, those of us called white, because we think that we're actually a thing, right? With some actual organic history. That's why Richard Spencer can call for a white ethno-state and the saving of the white race. The white race didn't exist as such. It was not called that. We were not one big happy family. I beg to remind you that in the countries of our origin, those of us now called white, we had spent most of our history trying to kill each other. That's how much we did not consider ourselves one big happy family, let alone one race of people, right? The English hated the Irish hated them back, everybody hated the Germans, and not without cause, right? Northern Italians didn't even think that Southern Italians were Italians, right? They thought they were these Mediterranean North African peoples. They didn't even really count as Italians, right? So we spent most of our time fighting each other, killing each other, or alternately looking for the witch. That was the other thing we did in the colonies. We were big on that. Right? That was sort of the history of European peoples, was infighting, killing. There was no white race. There was no pan-European unity.
Shalom. Call halal Yahawah BAHASHAM YAHAWASHI BAHASHAM. RAWCHAA QADASH. Double honors unto the apostles and the elders of the great millstone who rule well, who taught me this truth. Enough respect and salutations to the fellow AHTHAM, the house of David, the hopefully elect. Peace to the fervent brothers on fire pushing this truth. Yahawah BAHASHAM YAHAWASHI BARAK to you AHTHAM, as well as the sincere YAHAWAH that are listening and learning. This is your brother YAHAWAH from the Birmingham branch coming to you again. This 100% doctrine. And this lesson is going to be entitled Psychological Wage of Whiteness. And as you just heard, there was no such thing or people or race that was called white until the 1600s. Another thing that the man said was they was killing each other. Not just skirmishes, not just fights, not just hatred, but they was killing each other. Well, we can look no further than the biblical text of Revelation 6 and 4, which we're going to read. And it reads, and there went out another horse that was red, hint, hint, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth. You see, understanding horse meaning power. That's the symbolic meaning of it. Okay, red is a warning. You go back to Genesis 25, you got to figure out who came out red. Who liked red meat, even to this day. Right? It says, and that they, who is the they? The biblical Edomites should kill one another, and there was given unto him a great sword. You look no further than Genesis 27, round about the 40th, round there, around that verse. You see where Isaac giving out the blessings, he gave one of his sons the sword. You see? And by the way, you need to take this with you. This gives you proof that this man is still here today. And we're going to get into the wage of so-called whiteness. You understand? So, killing each other, when did that take place? Look no further than the Civil War. Look no further than the World War I and the World War II, the Spanish, the French, the British. And that was on higher classes. We're talking about lower level Edomites. Stay tuned.
So they create whiteness. They start giving the European, even the poorest white man, they start giving him certain advantages over anyone who is not considered white. Now they can enter into contracts. Now they can testify in court. Now they will get rid of indentured servitude. No more of that. Now you'll be a free person, right? Be able to work for whatever contract you can negotiate. And very importantly, they took these piss-poor Europeans, now called white, and put them on the slave patrol and said, you get to help us keep those people in line. You get to be our eyes and ears. You get to be ICE in the 1600s. You get to be the folks guarding the borders of this new club that you're a member of now. Isn't that exciting? And these poor white folks were like, yeah. Oh, shit. I get a gun and a badge and a horse? Whoa, sign me up. Right? And so they put aside their class interests, they put aside the recognition that they had of who they had more in common with, because now they had what W.E.B. Du Bois, the great sociologist, would later call the psychological wage of whiteness, right? The ability to say to yourself, well, I might not have much, but at least I'm not black. And later on, I might not have much, but at least I'm not Mexican. Or I might not have much, but at least I'm not native to this continent. Or I'm
Uh-oh. Why is we being lumped in with the natives and the so-called Latinos, so-called Mexicans? Why is so-called black Latinos and Native Americans always at the end of somebody's joke? Because we are the true children, okay, of the Most High. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, man. But let's get this straight real fast. And this is when you got your prize. You lower level Joe six-pack Edomites out there. Let's read this. Genesis 27:39. And Isaac his father answered and said unto him, Behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of earth and of the dew of heaven from above. Now when you read up, you got to understand that Esau was crying his bitch ass off, man. You know, as he always do. All right? Let's continue. It says, verse 40, which we mentioned, and by thy sword thou shalt live. And you go again to the book of Revelation 6 and 4, and you'll understand this scripture thoroughly. It says, and shalt serve thy brother, and it shall come to pass when thou shalt have the dominion that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck. And that's what took place. All right? During the reign of King David, we had these Edomites under subjection, man. You know? But the point is, and by thy sword shalt thou live. This is when the elite aristocrats of the colonies figured out that the poor people outweighed them. So they then wrote into law, wrote into legislations that you be able to what? Carry arms. You was able to what? Catch and lynch a nigger, so-called, or a Latino, or a Native American for that matter, right? And it tells you this in the next verse, 41. And Esau hated Jacob. Jacob meaning what? Later turned to Israel. Then he was the father of the 12 tribes, which are the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. And Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing wherewith his father blessed him. And Esau said it in his heart. This is a very, he was contemplating, man. You know, ever since he gave up his birthright, he was contemplating on how he was going to take Jacob out. It says, the days of mourning for my father are at hand. Then will I slay my brother Jacob. And that started after 70 AD, man. During 70 AD, after the Lord was crucified, that's when all hell broke loose for Esau and Jacob, man. And we always had that tension. You understand? But this gives you the understanding of who's in charge. All right? What forwardness these people have in their heart. This is Proverbs chapter 16 and verse 28. And it reads, a froward man soweth strife, and a whisperer separateth chief friends. These so-called aristocrats in the time of the colonies, when they was being developed, these men were sowing a strife amongst their own brethren, amongst their own friends. You see? Verse 29, a violent man enticeth his neighbor, and leadeth him into the way that is not good. Well, you can become a patrol officer. You can become a detective. It was no different in the past. You can become a slave catcher. You become, as the man mentioned, the modern day ICE. You see? Verse 30, he shutteth his eyes to devise froward things. Yeah, it's what you call looking the other way. Moving his lips, he bringeth evil to pass. We in modern times now. What don't you know about this son of perdition that you haven't been told?
The argument they were having, the only right that the South was fighting for was the right for its rich people to continue owning Africans. That was it. They admitted it at the time. They hadn't no shame about it at the time, so they were willing to admit that was it. But the thing is, if I'm going to break away from the Union and go to war to fight to preserve enslavement of people, how do I get poor people to go fight for that? Because, I'm rich. I own people. I ain't going to go fight for nothing. Rich people don't go to war. Rich people get poor people to go to war. Whether it's during the Civil War or whether it's right now, rich people get doctors to write notes insisting they have bone spurs so they can't go to Vietnam. That's what rich people do. If y'all don't know who I'm talking about, Google that shit later on today.
And this is how you've been hoodwinked, Esau. You average Idumeans, average modern day Americans. You've been fighting the higher illuminary battles and wars, all right, for your whole tenure as being on top. Yeah, you receive your wage of whiteness. Yeah, you receive these perks and privileges. Laws are in your favor. All right? Nevertheless, the rich stay rich. Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, all right? The Galinda Bates of the world. These people have actually baited you, all right, into doing what they would have us to be doing. Y'all gonna be pissed off as well. This is a Proverbs chapter 6 and verse 14. Frowardness is in his heart. He deviseth mischief continually. He soweth discord. And he has sown discord. How you going to be called to go to battle for your country? However, you got enough money to get a doctor to write you a note to the government saying you got a certain condition. These people are cowards. You understand? They sow discord continually. Therefore, your sons and your daughters go off to these wars and they come back limbs missing, PTSD, all right? This is death and this is hell. So let's finish this off in the book of 1 John chapter 3. Let's start at 10. And it reads, in this the children of the Most High are manifest. And the children of the devil. You see? Why would it be children of the devil? Does the devil have... This guy in hell with a spandex suit and a pitchfork, crisp shaved goatee, has children? Well, his children are the modern day Caucasians. It says, whosoever doeth not righteousness is not of the Most High, neither he that loveth not his brother. This is deep. This just don't stop to Esau and Jacob. Let's continue. For this is the message that ye heard from the beginning, that we should love one another. Commandment. Be obedient to that law. Verse 12. Not as Cain, who was of that wicked one. That spirit, all right, that dwelled within the serpent that beguiled Eve. That same spirit that came up out of the bottomless pit to what? Deceive the nations, even him own self. Who was of that wicked one, and slew his brother, and wherefore slew him, him, because his own works were evil, and his brother's righteous. That's like, knocking off a man, because he got righteous works, and I got evil works. Well, I don't want your works to outweigh my works. So I'm going to write a note. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to bend and write the law and legislation and policies to fit my evil works. You see where this is going? This is the psychological wage of whiteness. Okay? So with that, Lord willing, this was edifying and comforting. On to the next one. Shalom.